Oh, cool.
I found a list, and there's some good ones in there, some really good ones in there. So I'll share a couple per day for the next 3 or 4
Oh,
days.
cool. Yeah, nice. It's almost back to our what were we doing before with that? Oh,
Yeah,
quotes of the
quotes,
week.
quotes of the day, week, whatever. Yeah,
Oh, we can bring those back maybe. New
we'll
crowd.
get we'll get them organised at some stage.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We are live on YouTube, and it's a very, very warm welcome to those of you who have found us and have joined us. And we thank you very, very much for that. Let's hope we can find you something to find, some reward in that for you, in the form of pips. But pips don't really count a lot to me. I'm really after money at the end of the day. Don't really
Yeah.
care too much for pips. It's the money I want. Just give me money. That's what I. No, no, no. We get barred for that, don't we?
Well,
Look,
that's
I've
what you
got
want.
a. Sorry, mate.
You're about to sing.
Oh, yes. Well, it's that time of night where I go a bit funny. They call
Yeah.
it sundowning, I think.
Sundowning.
Something like that.
Um, well, no, you're right though. I mean, you can find pips in fruit. What we after it is money.
Absolutely. Just getting a little message there. And look, speaking of messages, those of you who have the thought to actually send in some lovely words, and there have been some lovely words sent in about the show. Many, many thanks for that. Look, I won't embarrass you by naming you. Not that that probably will embarrass you, but maybe it does. So I won't do it out without your permission. But thank you very much. You guys know who you are, and we very, very much appreciate it. Before we get into the show, and I've got a couple of updates I've got to tell you on the trades that I am in. I've actually switched polarity on a couple of them. So I'll be sharing that with you in just a tick. But before we go to there, let's have a quick look at Forex Factory, see if anything has actually happened today. And we did look at it earlier in the UK show and decided that China had some good numbers coming out. And that shouldn't hurt me too much, I wouldn't think, with my bias long on the Aussie. One thing that is interesting today, and what do these dudes say? I mean, really, the G7 leaders are due to discuss the measures to mitigate the economic impact of the coronavirus outbreak. Wow, there's a topic. Not sure how they'd come up with anything there that really means anything, but if they did, I'd like to know what it is, because that's, I guess, the question on everybody's mind is, what does this look like on the other side? And really, I guess until we've got a timeline on that, that would be extremely difficult to predict. But some people have to deal with that, and these guys blessed not with that task. And let's see how that comes out. I'm very, very interested to see the outcome of that if we actually do get one. So really nothing happening outside of those that I've just mentioned, unless, Ash, there's been something that I haven't heard about.
Well, the IMF was the only thing that I think I was reading about. Let me just double check that. Import prices from America minus 2.3% over forecast on that. FTSE held back. I'll tell you what there was actually, which I thought was
Mm-hmm.
quite interesting. There was a currently some sort of the exchange were currently sorry the exchange were causing European pricing outages. So some of the products were restricted on some of the European indices, which I thought was quite interesting. Aside from that, no, there wasn't anything. It wasn't anything huge. The only other thing is some of these pharmaceutical stocks doing pretty well. AstraZeneca shares were flying early doors because of their one of their drugs being used for testing for COVID-19 as well. So you know when it comes down to what's happening, I think out there it's been quite I think logical. Some of the stocks that have done really well, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I was in Polymetal for quite some time. The Polymetal, which was the gold stock that continues to fly to the upside and continues to go. Interestingly, I think things like Just Eat, takeaway company, have done really well off the back of COVID-19 as well, with more people staying in. So we've got takeaway companies still doing really, really well. And the likes of Ocado, which is a food delivery company, and also what was the other one that I was reading about? I can't remember Netflix, which is the other one I was picking out a few weeks ago as well on the Sunday show. That one is flying as well. So there are some stocks out there. Don't get me wrong, I did pick some duds as well, but the ones that have done very well have done more than outweigh the ones that weren't doing so well. So there were some stocks out there, some real standout stocks, and I didn't pick all the good ones. There's plenty of other good names out there. Fresnillo, another precious metals mining stock, and as I say, the healthcare stock, some of those healthcare stock, the pharmaceuticals, doing pretty well right now. Reckitt Benckiser is another one that I liked a few weeks ago, and I didn't trade that one, but that one is also flying to the upside. So when it really comes down to it, what have we not missed is the real question here. It's all well and good talking about the ones that we could have traded, which have started to go. What have we not missed? And I'll tell you the one that I really quite like for a short is a company called Ashtead. And Ashtead, what's that, mate?
Who are they? What do they do?
Ashtead, sorry. Ashtead are a company.
You and your Uncle Ted.
Yes, no, well, it's not me and my Uncle Ted. It's not even my head. It is a provider of equipment and rental solutions. So it's operating two businesses, and effectively they deal a lot with America, and it's really to do with construction. So digging and power and generating and drilling and all that kind of thing. The fact that the manufacturing sector in the US has got pretty poor figures, one of the reasons I quite like them. So they are not at this current time a decent enough setup to trade short, which I will show you in a moment, but they are certainly a short that I'm looking for. So I'm waiting for Ashtead Group. If anybody can trade the UK stocks, Ashtead Group would be one of the ones that I'd be quite interested in picking out. Obviously Zoom and stuff like that have done really well out of this as well, which is another one I didn't trade. But I think if you were to really break some of this stuff down, it's pretty logical. And a lot of the companies that I think most people would have thought of during this period have actually done really well. So there's been some really good opportunities during this whole situation when the market started to turn. But what happens from here on in, we don't know. Swissy yen, we would have now been triggered into, which is just about now above the daily pivot. But let's see how that one unfolds. Might still be a day early. I don't know. Might be a day early on the FTSE shorts as well. FTSE hasn't actually given us a short setup as yet. I don't know if you want to quickly see the chart here, mate.
Mate, might as well. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to bring me the
screen around the grounds, and there's a couple of things that I am looking at, but nothing that won't wait at this point.
Okay. Great stuff. All right. So this is the FTSE right now. Sorry, that's the Swissy yen right now, but this is the FTSE. Has come under this trend line, so still of interest at this particular point. And this is an hourly chart. The hourly chart has started to break down, giving us that potential opportunity. I've got a little bit of a problem with the weakness of the sell-off, and that is just encouraging me to sit for a little while before I add to any shorts here. Because I really want to see something a bit more decisive. A close down there would get me interested. And it's a close in the hourly. So I really want to see by the first half an hour of the US session that the FTSE 100 close down in this area, or even below, anywhere sort of like down there and there. Because as it then comes back up, I will have something that would probably look like a head and shoulders pattern with a neckline going along there. So if it's starting to come back up again, then we can start picking up, somewhere around about there. So not that the price isn't good. I think the price is absolutely fine here, but I don't think we've got enough detail to suggest this is breaking down just yet. Could be wrong, but I'd prefer to be safe. And as my old trading teacher used to say, I'd rather wish I were in than wish I were out. So I'm going to wait to see a true signal on this one. And it might even be that we're waiting till tomorrow, because when we look at this on a daily chart, what we've got is an inside bar here. So the market is gapped down this morning. We've got an inside bar. We've also got a shooting star as well. So that does have a pretty negative look about it. But if we look across the board, the board to the S&P, showing something slightly different. S&P still fairly bullish on the day. We got the Dow Jones, which is still fairly bullish on the day. So with those two markets doing fairly well, the Nasdaq as well is as bulletproof as it always is, and actually stretching its legs to the upside. So that one's doing pretty well right now. So the FTSE would be a bit of a buck of a trend if it was to fail here. So it might still be a little bit early to be looking at FTSE shorts, but we do need to be aware that it could happen. So let's see what happens with the S&P and the Dow over the course of the next trading session. Might be that people are waiting for some earnings reports before they do anything with this market, or they might try and anticipate some downside first. So as yet, mate, we can't really do a whole bunch. I don't think there's enough in the way of barometers which suggest that we're ready to come down. If anything, we're just really waiting for this market to see whether it's going to turn around and go long again. So we're still looking up at this particular stage in time, at this current time. We're not really looking shorts just yet. So FTSE 100 is still a long.
Kind of like what you said with the not happy with the strength of the downside just yet. And I think, if this is going to go, and I think we agreed on this yesterday, if the FTSE is going to go short, it won't go short gently. It will tank again.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So we need to see some sweeping selling going on. Just to quickly to the barometers as well. What we've got with the FTSE 100 shares currently is a stock market that has only 30. Let's call it 40% of stocks in positive territory. So there are many stocks that are actually doing a little bit poorly. There's quite, it's fairly sluggish out there. The price action, it's not doing particularly well, not doing particularly badly either. But the stocks, there's not too many decent performers. So actually going long the way it is not going to see a whole bunch of power at this particular time. So we do need to wait for the US session. This often will give us a different flavor. Now, whether that flavor actually is to the downside or upside at this stage, I'm not 100% sure. But so far, the S&P and the Dow are really showing that the futures are probably going to open a bit higher.
Chocolate malt, thanks.
Chocolate malt?
Yep.
Just to sit back, have a chocolate malt.
You just said flavour, and so I thought of ice cream.
Oh.
and thick shakes and things like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
There are things that actually keep me awake at night, and generally trading isn't one of them, unless I've made a blue. If I've told someone to trade something and it didn't work out. But there are a few things that keep me awake at night. I want to share them with you in the next couple of days. And I'm going to share, I came across this list. It's actually not mine, but I kind of agree with it. And I'm going to share the first of them with you right now, just to give you something to chew on throughout the evening. And it is, if you replaced the W, now you've got to think about this. If you replace the W with T, so W's out, T's in what, the word what, W-H-A-T, the word where, W-H-E-R-E, and the word when, W-H-E-N. So if you replace the W's, what, where, and when, with the T, what do you get? You get the answers. Can you believe that? Is everyone on board with that?
I think we're seeing your screen, mate.
So you need to see it written. Okay, I get it. All right, we can do that. We can do that. Who's got it? Hands up, who's got it? Share the screen. You can do it that way. And then that way. All right, I'll spell it out for you.
Yeah.
So if we got 3 words, okay, here they come. I'll put them up in big bold letters. There we go. What, where, and when. So that's a question everybody asks, what, where, and when, isn't it? Journalists, everybody all over the bloody planet asks what, where, and when. And I'm one of those people. So the thing is, replace the W's with the T's. So what becomes that, where becomes there, and when becomes then. How good's that? You got it, Ash? What, where,
No, I
and
haven't.
when?
I haven't, mate. I haven't. That there then. I get that bit.
Well,
What,
I'll
where,
write
when?
that up.
Oh, I see that there then.
Yes, it's the
Yeah, I
answers.
get it. I get it. That's very good, mate.
Oh, mate, I'm just right on top of this.
That's very good. Very good.
I've got a few of these to share with you this week. I reckon that's amazing.
Apparently, journalists always ask who, what, when, there, and how.
Yes, that's true. I used to work in I used to work in the sport section of a newsroom, and they're absolute holes.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah.
You get over seeing people with their toes in the doors and going, listen, how do you feel when your mother's just passed away or something like that? That's junk, garbage. That's got nothing to do with trading either. Hello, everybody. Helen, how are you? Raymond, PL, Jimmy, Lewis, Fad, John, great to have you on board. And I hope you're now well in the picture of what, where, and when. You've now got the answers. Righto, a couple of things that I need to pass on. And Pound Kiwi, Jimmy wanted to know about Pound Kiwi on the daily chart. Is it a buy tomorrow? Well, not if it keeps going like this, Jimmy, because it'll be up here somewhere for me and untradeable. But that said, if it were to come back here now, then yes, I'm with you. I'm totally on board with you. Wouldn't want to see it go too far. That's going to be the issue. I do like the fact that we've been unable to come back below this trend line. And this one here is being a little bit difficult as well. The key here, and I'm pretty sure you picked up on this, is that we've cleared the pivots. So we've broken out of that little mini range that we've been in here and broken through the weekly pivot. So what I'd like to see is a retest of the weekly pivot to get me into the long that you speak of. But yeah, totally on board with you. That's the 4-hour chart, of course, that I'm looking at. And the daily chart would be pretty much exactly the same. And what it would give us is a potential false break of this daily support trade line. So, yep, totally on board. But I want to see a pullback before that happens. And that can only happen, of course, if we're to trade it tomorrow on the 4-hour chart. Okay. Things I need to tell you. Ace, yeah, great question, mate. I'll get to it a little bit later. Ace is asking me how to trade the slingshot in this market. Steer clear of the small time frames is the short answer. And speaking of which, slingshot trades that we have been in, a couple of them we're now no longer in because I did tell you guys that I trailed my stop on pound Aussie down to this level, and that's now been taken out. Interestingly, we've had a break and a retest of the daily pivot. I'm actually on for a long here on an intraday basis. Timing, of course, is going to be everything. It looks to me now like we do have a higher low sitting here, and I'm quite interested in that. But I've actually traded that on Euro Aussie. I'm kind of, and I've traded it very, very light. I've gone in with absolutely nothing on this because it's very, very early. I think what I'd really like to see, if I am to trade this long seriously, is price hit this level, then pull back and give us the higher low that we seek. So that's probably the better place to trade it from in this area here. So, you know, if we're even going into the bigger time frames, it'll look something like an inverted head and shoulders, if that is to be the case. So this is very, very early in the piece, but if you want to follow it, I'm actually going to cancel it and change my order, because you can, I actually traded this bar here and I want to trade this bar here. Well, sorry, I traded this bar here, but I put my stop below this bar here. I need to move my stop now below the low, which gets me underneath this little bit of a resistance area as well. So I'm going to can that. So the trade is gone, and I will now, I won't use the trade manager because some of you don't have that EA available to you. So we'll just trade this manually. But it is very, very small risk that I'm going into this with. So pull this back, guys, if you want to follow it. Depending order, it's a buy stop, and the entry level is above this bar, as I said, at 1.7165. We'll go in at 1.7165. And we'll put our stop loss below this bar, and that will be at 1.71, let's call it 1.7098. 1.7098. So this can answer your question, Ace, as well. If we're trading a slingshot here, what we would normally do is put our entry here and our stop loss here, right? Go away. And our stop loss here. We can't do that when the market is dodging around all over the place as it has been. So what we need to do is be a little bit more strategic than that and put our stop underneath a logical point. And we've gone about 5 pips underneath the low of this bar. That's the most logical point to me. If we were to put it here, I think we'd be very, very vulnerable. So let's just whack that into the market and see how we go. Now, if you want to add to that risk just a little bit, you can go back to pound Aussie and you can trade that in one of two ways. If you're adventurous and want to take a fair bit of risk on board, then you could enter pretty much at market, but not at market. We're still below the entry level. You could trade it above this bar here, this bar being the potential higher low, which really in some people's parlance it is, but in mine it's not necessarily. I'm going to do exactly the same as I've done with Euro Aussie, and I'm going to trade above this bar here, in fact above this bar here, because it's a little bit higher, and I'm going to put my stop below this bar here. So again, extremely light into this one. You'll definitely get a second opportunity if this is going to reverse. So, you know, there's no need to load up here at all. And this is very much the same trade. So the risk factor is probably double what you're now putting on it if you are trading Euro Aussie as well, because it's pretty much exactly the same trade. The level, I'm going to go long at 1.9670. And I'm going to put my stop loss underneath this bar, about 5 pips. 1.9596 will do. Okay. So there we go. Entry is here. Stop loss is here. Probably could have snuck it even a little bit further underneath here, but I think that's okay. If we're wrong here, we're probably going to be wrong there as well. And don't forget, I still have an extremely bearish bias on this. Why? So why am I trading it long is the question I hear you ask. Well, It's because of a couple of things. Number one is I think we're in for a retracement here and some sort of substantial retracement. And just like Ash was talking about on the FTSE, if we were to go short here, we surely, in my humble opinion, would have done so by now as a bounce off. And we've done it twice. We've hit this level. We've retested it once. We've retested it twice at the confluence area. And we've failed to go below the low of the range, or sorry, to hold a price below the low of the range. So my obvious answer to that is, well, something else is going on. And if that something else just happens to coincide with a long setup, then I'm obliged to take it. The other reason is that we've come back into the range and we've put in a higher low. That's just one of the ways I trade. So there's every reason to trade this, but you've got to be very, very cautious because it is so early into, if you consider this to be a potential reversal, then you're very, very early. But if you're just trading the retracement, you're still early. But why not be early if you can? So that's there. That's pound Aussie, euro Aussie out of both of the shorts. What else have I got going? CAD yen is still hanging on here. And this is another one that's interesting because it's exactly the same scenario. We've broken through a level, but we just can't go anywhere. It's stuck in a hole. And whilst ever I've got this scenario that we have with this daily bar, in that the low is still the low, I think we can break out to the high side here. But whilst if that low gets taken out by this bar, which will take me out of the trade, and I've already taken profit, so it's not the end of the world if that's the case, then that's no longer in play and we'll look for something else. But same applies here with one small issue. We've got a double bottom here. We've got a higher high. We've got a higher low. We failed to take out the previous high, which is the issue. But we still haven't had a close below the monthly pivot. And now the weekly pivot's joined it, it gives it just that little bit more sting or support, if you like, a bit of concrete, that in my mind says that this bar is still perfectly valid and we can go long here. A little bit early, perhaps, again, because this is the first attempt to go long, basically, after we've come back inside the range. But we do have the higher low in place, and that's what we're looking for. So that one's okay as well. As I said, if it gets taken out, it's not the end of the world because we have taken profit on it. CAD Swissy, that's now come back. And again, we're in good profit on this one. I can't remember where the stop loss is. Let me check on
20
that.
seconds still open, mate. 20 seconds still open, just so you know that there might be some movement.
Yep. Okay. So the stop loss, which is in profit, we bought here and we've moved our stops. We've taken profit twice. So this is going to be a winner no matter what. We will... My clock's out if it's 20 seconds away. We can only have profit here. This looks like it wants to come back into the downside to me, but I'm not going to do anything. I'll just wait until that one does something to us, and that will be either put us into further profit or otherwise. Righto, Ash, do you need to do something?
I think my clock was out.
Happy days. Hang on,
30 seconds still open, mate. 30 seconds still open.
Have I got something on what keeps me awake at night to do with the clock? I'll have a look at that.
Tell you what keeps me awake at night. My eyes are going. Yeah, now it's 20 seconds still open. No, nothing to do yet, just yet, mate. I've just seen a little bit of weakness coming into the FTSE 100, but nothing suggesting that the S&P is doing the same currently. Yes, it's at a point of resistance, so may struggle to get in here. Maybe that's the trade more than anything else, looking for some S&P weakness. But FTSE just about holding on. We'll still need to wait. Still got to wait, but just interested to see. We've now opened up. Interested to see what happens in this first half an hour, realistically. If we get a bar that does suggest some downside, then we could well be looking at taking a short with the FTSE 100. But it's still a bit early. Still not conclusive at this particular juncture as yet, mate.
Happy days. I'm lost here. I haven't got my pivots. Somebody stole my pivots. Let's get them back, because that's most important. There we go. That answers my question. So I was about to tell you guys that there's a short on offer here, but that's now no longer the case. Why? Because I'm not trading straight into, well, 3 support levels. Bang, bang, bang. Daily support 1, weekly pivot untested, and monthly pivot, which has been strong support. No, I won't be going short here anytime soon. So that's not for me. In fact, that could serve us very, very well and take us back into a nice little run to the upside. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the position we're in. So I don't need to change anything. If, of course, we come back through here and retest those levels in the meantime, taking us out of the trade, then I may well switch polarity. But until that happens, this looks okay to me. We've actually broken through a range. We've closed the gap. We've now come back and tested the pivots. I think this has got a good chance of going.
Just responding to Lewis's comment about a short on the dollar CAD. I agree with you on the 4 hour, but I don't like the 1 hour particularly. I think it might be a shade early if you're going to be looking at a short in dollar CAD. But as I say, the 4 hour looks okay because I kind of like the 1 hour to kind of show me the same thing. I don't think it's there yet. Actually, looks a bit sticky. The whole thing looks a bit sticky.
One of those things, isn't it? Really, if you're following the trend and you're looking at the pivots, then you could be forgiven for thinking that now is the time. And I totally get that, because as we come down, you'll find oftentimes, and this is potentially one of them, that the daily pivot will hold price and repel price. Even if not at the first attempt, it'll go bang, bang, gone. Up here, a little bit of consolidation on the daily pivot, then it's gone again. Bit of a break of the daily pivot, then it's gone again. Same here, same here. That might be the answer that you're looking for, Lewis. See what's happened to the daily pivot every single day. It's been broken, and then when they've come back underneath it, they've gone. So maybe that's something you could think about.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it does probably need to test a slightly different area as well. The Swissy yen currently, as the US market opens up in the first 3 minutes, is back on the move to a degree to the downside. There is probably an upside setup in the short term, which is slightly problematic. So there might still be some short-term upside on the Swissy yen, but we'll look at that later on, mate, when you've done your analysis, and see what could happen with that one, as we are in that trade.
Righto, happy days. See if I can find anything else that we might be likely to trade. Pound US dollar that we got into, when was that? Was it Wednesday or Thursday? Monday, Friday, Thursday. This got triggered on Wednesday by the look of it. Cheers, PH. Hello, mate. That's still going, and there's absolutely no reason to do anything here, in my humble opinion, except if you haven't taken the second profit, which was this level here, you probably need to do that because there's every chance that this can come down now and test the daily pivot, or worse, and then you've got an issue. I'm going to leave my stops where they are for now because that is a distinct possibility that I see, and retest this this resistance area again at the daily pivot level, and then potentially go and on towards our third take profit level, which is up here. But you should have taken the second profit that I showed you, well, as late as last night, because we did go through that level, and that's it there. So that's not anything that we need to do anything about. Dollar yen, we're still in dollar yen. Of course, that's traveling fairly nicely for us as well. The only thing you need to do is decide whether you're going to take the next level of profit at this low or let it go through to the monthly pivot. I will likely be on the conservative side of that. So I'll take my profit there just before that low and just before the monthly pivot. I think I'll wait to move my stop loss. They're now at entry, of course. No, they're not. There's entry there. Entry's a little bit dodgy because it's below the weekly pivot, and that's why I don't want to move it there just yet. Maybe if we get a swing here, that may change, but at this point in time, we can't lose on the trade. So just leave it going, in my humble opinion. What else do we need? Pound Aussie. What happened to Pound Aussie? Well, Christina, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but the Pound Aussie trade that we've been in for the last 3 weeks, something like that. As I said yesterday, I moved my stops down to just above or at yesterday's daily pivot, basically, but above today's daily pivot. That's now been taken out. I'm okay with that. And I've now placed a long order above this candle here. So if you want the levels on that, I can't quite remember them, but they are 1.9670 from memory was the entry. And the stop loss is, and again, this goes to your question, Ace, this is the difference. Instead of putting my stop loss there, let's get rid of that now. Instead of putting my stop loss there, which was bang on the trailing stop for the other one, and really the slingshot methodology, when we're trading now in a more volatile situation, if I am trading on the small timeframes, which I'm not really in any earnest, I'm concentrating on the bigger timeframes, I've got to move my stops to where they make sense rather than where the methodology dictates, if you like. So it makes sense to put my stop loss underneath that swing now rather than have it underneath the candle. So entry is still similar, although I have got my entry above this bar, but the stop loss widens out. And that is definitely due to the volatility around coronavirus. And that's what we've been doing since then, pretty much. What else? I think that, Euro Pound, okay. Euro Pound, as you guys know, we've done very, very well out of Euro Pound, and very, very similar to Pound Aussie was this consolidation period that we went into. I was actually looking to trade that, well, not necessarily trade it, but allow it to go back to the monthly pivot in retracement. It doesn't look like it wants to do that, and that kind of disturbs me just a little bit because I really don't want to miss the rest of this position. But I think I'll get another opportunity. There's a little bit of consolidation area here, so I'm expecting that we'll hit another support level if this keeps going, and then I might get another chance to get back in here. But I'm still very, very much aware that we've got an untested monthly pivot above us and that we are in need of retracement. So at this point, I'm okay. But ask me if the price gets down here, how I feel about that, and that will change dramatically, I can assure you. The Aussie pairs still very, very much in focus for me, but every single one of them is in the same boat and in the same category. I don't really use a lot of measured moves, but if I measure that one and then have a look at that one, they're very, very similar in that if the size is the same, and in other words, if the buying is of the same volume, etc., and we get to this resistance level, I would expect a retracement similar to here. So I don't want to trade long at this point. So I'm waiting for price to get back to the weekly pivot, and then I'll get interested in trading it long. So I'm not going to go through every single Aussie pair at the moment because they are all exactly the same. So that's the daily chart on Aussie yen. Aussie Swissy is exactly the same. Aussie CAD is exactly the same. Aussie Kiwi is exactly the same. And Aussie US dollar is exactly the same. So one size pretty much fits all here, as a matter of fact. So yes, I am still a bull, the Aussie. I'm out of pound Aussie and euro Aussie, the short side. We made a bunch of money on those, so we're more than happy. Waiting now for retracements to get back into the pound Aussie short, back into the euro Aussie short, and into any one of these longs. I don't care what cross it is. Maybe have a preference for the dollar at this stage because I'm bearish the dollar, maybe even the Kiwi, but I'd trade it against anything if the setup's there, to be fair. So, mate, that's probably about all I've got for now. But
Right.
in just before the top of the hour, we'll reassess these 30-minute charts and see how we go. Oh, sorry, Christina, did I give you the? I did give you the levels on both the pound Aussie. I didn't give it to you on the euro Aussie, I don't think, but similar trade. In fact, it's the very same trade where we've got an entry above this bar here. I think at around about 67.41 or 2 or something like that was the entry level. And the stop loss is under this pin bar here at 170.98, I believe. All very close there too. Right, mate, give it your best.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you could give me the screen, I just want to talk about this this Swiss yen, and just let you guys know what I like to do from this particular position, because it won't be. I'm not saying everybody should do this, but when I see this, I like to close this trade. You know, I'd prefer to close this trade down, and I'll tell you the reason why. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't believe that this trade has got a good chance to come down. But look where we are, 111.50. Oh, how you doing, PH, by the way? Really good to have you on board, buddy. Good to see you in. The reason I like to close this trade down is our entry was 111.50. Now, if our entry is at 111.50 with stops up here, then we've got around about 100 pips stop loss, and we're looking down at the lows. If we are going to lose 10 pips here, we've got a tenth of 1% loss. If we gone in at 0.5%, we've got a tenth of a 0.5% loss. Now, this is coming down. It'd be very easy for us to just and now, if you want to stay in, that's absolutely fine. I'm not saying that you should change your position. I'm not going to go long by any stretch. But the reason that I prefer to close this trade and wait for a different signal is that it didn't do what I wanted it to do. It didn't do what I expected it to do. And if I close it here, I've pretty much come out at break even with a chart that does not look the way I want it to look. So I can lose a lot of the. I can close a whole bunch of these with little loss, and eventually got on top and on board with one that does do what I expected it to do. But this one didn't. You know, it came down as it came up. We took the trade in this area here. Even gave us that bar, but then it held on. The last hour closed above the daily pivot. We might even see that this hour closes below. Does that bring the short back into focus? Yeah, it can do to a degree, but that's not my particular style. Now, the reason that I don't use that as a style is that what I'm looking for is looking at this on longer term timeframes, no question, this looks good. Looks good for some further downside. Monthly, bit scruffy on the monthly, but we're not going to worry too much about that because we're not after very much. The weekly, I would also suggest a little bit scruffy, but it's when we get into the daily. You know, the daily does look like we are seeing a dip here. Looks like we've got this lower high area here, and all we need to start with where our stops was going to be, was to grab the low. We grab the low, we can go in 50-50 on our trade, and we can leave our stops where they are and just let it run. And then the 4 hour, again, 4 hour looks pretty good. Looks to me like we're making a lower high. So if you want to stay on board with this one, I completely get it. But it's when I come to the hourly, I find problematic. That's a pretty strong bar, and it did close above the daily pivot. But more significantly, it's the 15. My trigger chart was this initially. It came down, it came up, showed me some weakness, but it turned around and held its way to the upside. And not only did it hold its way to the upside, but it also took out a level of resistance here. But potentially an inverted head and shoulders on the 15, which is not not all that significant, but it is a red flag. So if I'm in a trade which I can get out of at practically break even, when the charts haven't done what I wanted them to do, my preferred solution and option is to just close it and wait for something cleaner. If this goes and goes all the way down to the ground, it still will not bother me, because I guarantee that there will be 5 or 6 which I wouldn't have closed, which would have got me out at losing my 1% or 0.5% or whatever, and will just make the management very, very difficult. So at this particular stage, as I say, I can't advise what anybody else what to do at this particular stage, but my particular style is just to get out. Chart didn't do what I wanted it to. Not interested. So there's that one.
And
just
you
so
got a double
know.
cross. You got a double cross there as well.
And I probably have a double cross, which I still don't 100% understand. But yeah, I'm sure there is a double cross. Yeah, so we've crossed above the pivot and we've crossed back down again.
Probably on the 30-minute or hourly, it'll become far more obvious.
There's our 30-minute. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, when you see that, mate,
the issue you've got trading that. Sorry, mate. You go first.
Well, would that suggest to you, seeing that double cross, that suggest you downside or upside?
Upside.
Upside. So there you go. So, we got a double cross as well. So there's enough to make me want to close the trade. Now, as I say, the longer term time frame still look good, but what it's telling me is my timing is bad. And if my timing is bad, one of two things can happen. Either I get a better timing, I get a better signal later on, and I just got in a bit early, which the chart has allowed me to get out of the trade, which is all well and good. That's great. Or the timing is bad, and actually is given an opportunity to carve out a low here and actually starts going in the opposite direction. So for me, I prefer to come out. As I say, it's practically break even. So the chart hasn't behaved. So not interested in that anymore.
Sorry, mate, before you go off that, I'll share something with you guys that I use all the time, and it's the pivots. And when you see the pivots all together, and they've been together for the past week and a half, I can't see beyond that on that chart, but you can throw a blanket over them at the moment. That tells me, A, what's happened, in that the market has compressed and everything's come together, and B, that they're likely to stay there until there's a news announcement or something dramatic happens to actually move them away from there. So they seem comfortable in that zone, if you like, in that particular range for the moment. So that, to me, is another indicator to just tread warily at this point in time.
Yeah, and this is the thing, the technicals are there from my perspective to give me the best possible timing. So if the technicals actually turn around and do something completely different to what I was expecting, that means it hasn't given me good timing. But what it has done is given me the opportunity to get out at pretty much the same price as I got in, which is really what we want. If the charts don't behave in the way that we want them to. Now, that doesn't mean this isn't a short, but in my opinion, it might not be a short just yet, and I'd prefer to put my money somewhere else and wait on this. This will still stay on the watch list, but I'd prefer to put my money somewhere else and see if it'll actually work for me rather than wasting it in here. Because while I've got 1% or 0.5% tied up here, I can't put 1% or 0.5% of my account somewhere else. So not interested in that anymore. FTSE 100 has held up pretty well so far. It looks like we're getting a double cross here as well, mate, by the looks of things. I don't know whether that would qualify, but
yeah, a bit messy. That's the only thing. You need to go out a few time frames. Maybe the 4 hour might look interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the 1 hour. The 4 hour is the chart which is really allowing us to predict or to presume that this trend is still intact and stay very much to the upside. It hasn't even tested the trend line down there. So the 4 hour trend is intact on this. The hourly slightly under pressure here. The 15, we have seen it's under pressure here, but all we're really waiting for in this kind of climate is for the 15 and the hourly to turn around back to the upside, and then really we're back playing the longer term timeframes for another long. So the FTSE 100 is holding up. I'm seeing the S&P continuing to hold its own as well, even at the very, very highest point up here. So no suggestion that the S&P is going to be coming down. We are in earnings season potentially, and we could assume that this is earnings season. We got the banks reporting fairly soon. How the banks would have made any money, I don't know, but we will have the first 2 months of reporting as part of the earnings season numbers. So maybe a little bit skewed. I think it'll be the next quarter that we'll probably see the genuine results of what happened with this pandemic. But by that time, it'd be too late anyway. So we're not really interested in those numbers at that time. We're really interested in where we are now and trying to get some kind of speculation on where we're going from here. And the banks may be able to give us a hint of what that might be. But the longs in the FTSE 100 are still very much on the cards here. The 5-minute chart is suggesting that on shorter term timeframes, taking out this particular high here would suggest that any return back down to the daily pivot would encourage some upside, particularly if this hourly bar has managed to engulf everything here, 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 and here. So it will take out the price action of the last 5 hours of downside. So if that bar looks like that, then the long pretty much, I would suggest, would probably be back on the cards. I'm just going to check one thing here. Yeah, pretty ugly. We've got a governor from New York currently speaking to do with COVID-19, which is why the market is moving the way it's moving. So let's not get too excited here, actually, because when he finishes speaking, I wonder whether we just go back to normal. But with some pressure in the market, just looking under the hood again, just one more time, we have got... 46, around about 50-50. So we got 50 stocks in positive territory, 50 in negative territory. Doesn't really tell us a lot of information, but the yeah, it sounds like the guy talking is saying that the cavalry is coming for New York, so that might be enough to drive this market higher on the day. Difficult to know, but ultimately the longer term trend. What's that, buddy?
I said, I hope it's not F Troop.
F Troop? Who's F Troop?
Oh, really? Okay. I'm showing my age again.
I
shouldn't joke about the end of the Civil War was near when quite accidentally a hero who sneezed abruptly.
Hold on. You do realise that we're going to get fined for this?
There can't be copyright on that thing.
Just so everybody knows, Jeff isn't allowed to sing on the show. Otherwise, we get fined. We get fined. That's really where we are, mate. I don't really have a whole bunch else to offer except for the fact that we've probably got to stay with the upside. We don't really have any particularly good setups one way or the other. The market's a bit sticky today, actually. I don't love it. Not loving the price action so far. It'll probably grind its way higher. So if you're long, stick with it. If you're not, then maybe time to get in, if it returns to that daily pivot. Certainly no time to go short. That's one thing we can say. There's not enough information to take us to the downside. We're still waiting for longer term structure to break for us to go short at this current juncture. And that's what I'll wait for, mate. I don't have a lot else. I think we just got to say stay where we are.
Yep, happy days. So Jimmy, that probably answers your question on the daily chart for the FTSE. Well, I'll let you answer it, Ash. But
yeah, if you look at this on the daily chart on the FTSE, it's really difficult. I have to say it's really difficult because we haven't finished the bar yet. If the bar looks like this, that is going to start looking like tomorrow, and some could be the start of the move down. That this bar really does need to end on its highs to suggest that we do have some further upside. Where it is now is a doji Looks like a doji bar. It looks like a fairly negative looking doji as well, which has got a kind of shooting star kind of look about it. But the fact that it's near its lower range, but more significantly gapped lower, is a bit negative. So if it looks like it does here, then I'd probably still be interested in the short, but I'd still need that to turn around on the shorter term timeframes. Most significantly the 4 hour. I don't think it will end up here. I've got to say, I think if anything, we're going to end up at the lows or potentially the highs. This particular point right now on the futures. No, that's not on the cash market, which will end at 4:30 UK time, which is in about an hour and a half. That's a completely different matter. But you guys are looking at the UK 100, which is a hybrid of cash and futures. I doubt it's going to look like this. It might. We have had price action being fairly sleepy today, so it's possible, but I don't think we can garner too much on this until the daily bar has actually closed, which is not until 9 o'clock/10 o'clock UK.
Okay, done with that, mate?
Yeah, done with this, mate. Yes, absolutely. As I say, we're still, in answer to the direction though, Jimmy, we are still looking for the long. There's no two ways about it. It's yes, you could buy it today. I wouldn't buy this. I wouldn't buy this bar if that's the question, the previous bar, or I wouldn't buy the high here with a stop at the low. That wouldn't be the way that I would play it. If I was going to go long here, I'd want to go long pretty quickly, or fairly soon, around about the 20 pips below where you are now on the UK 100, which is going to be around about 58.20. So if it comes down to 58.20, you wouldn't need your stops too much lower. Particularly if it closes here and comes down with the next bar, you can just put your stops underneath here. So you can have a fairly tight stop here, around about 50 pips to the to entry. I would have thought maybe even 40 to entry for a stop, because there's quite a lot here that would suggest it's going to hold up, namely the trend line, this area here. So maybe somewhere under the trend line might be even a little bit safer, which is going to give you around about the 50 pip stop loss. But I wouldn't want to enter at the higher or the lower of daily bars. I definitely want to enter intraday if I was going to trade this long. Let's see what happens at the end of this hourly bar, though. We got 3 minutes until the end of this hourly bar. See how convincing it is of a close.
Righto, a couple of things for me to look at before we wrap. And Ash, your homework, should you decide to accept the mission, is Google F-Trip and watch one episode before tomorrow.
Is it worth watching?
Mate, the challenge will be you won't be able to stop at one. Simple as that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is exciting. Okay.
So there was a question from Christina. Euro Aussie possibly anymore? Absolutely, Christina. I'm still bearish, and a big bearish type person at the moment. And my target initially was down here where I've got this line, which is around about 65. Let's call it 66, and I think I've said that for the last 3 weeks or something. So that's minimum for me now. The thing is, what I need to see happen now, and this is why I'm now out of the trade, because I trailed my stops pretty much to not far from where we are right now. In fact, it's pretty much at the entry, just above the daily pivot. That's where my stops were trailed to. So I'm now out of that trade. And the reason I want to be out of that trade is twofold. I think this is oversold, number one, and we're due retracement, number two. Number three is I've got a relative strength confluence that agrees with my analysis. So if I look at the Aussie dollar on the daily chart, again, looks to be overbought to me, but has now reached the resistance level that I spoke of before. And it's bang on 64 cents at the moment. If it went up to this exact level, it'd be right on 65 cents. Due for retracement, in my humble opinion. So I'm looking for that to pull back. And as I said earlier in the show, every one of these Aussies needs to come back for me, and the weekly pivot is the obvious level. Then if I have a look at the euro, against the US dollar, which is here, I see that we have come to the bottom of a channel and we've bounced off the bottom of a channel, and this is looking now bullish and headed towards the monthly pivot. So the euro versus the US dollar is rallying as much as the Aussie right now, but the Aussie is due pullback, whereas the euro, in my humble opinion, has got a little bit more travel in it before that would be the case. So if I put those two combinations with the previous that I've just mentioned on euro Aussie, I'm more than willing to take the long here, but only at very, very small risk because it's very, very early into the piece. But I've got a setup. I've got a slingshot setup. I've got a higher low in place after I've got a bit of a base formed as well. So it would be silly of me not to take this trade when I'm thinking we're going here anyway, and I've got a setup and all of the above that all of the previous that I've just mentioned. So dual answer, I know. I definitely see euro Aussie down here, potentially down here at 160, but not just yet. I've got to see this pullback. And if I can trade it at very small risk, then that's exactly what I will do. And pound Aussie is exactly the same. We're now in that trade by the look of it. And let's hope we can get up to a TP1. So pound Aussie is triggered and we're long. The pound itself is going gangbusters. We're going very well on that one. Dollar yen, how's that going? Yeah, that's looking really good. Still going towards the monthly pivot. So there's still a lot to be cheerful about, and hopefully that will continue to be the case. Your homework, Helen, is absolutely to watch for Crystal. Sorry. Do you know F Troop, Helen? You guys have got to Google F Troop. That's your homework. And
I've just Googled it.
All right. So you're on.
Yeah, I've just Googled it. Season 1, episode 1's in black and white, but by the time they get to season 2, episode 17, it's in color.
Oh, is it? I don't remember it color.
Yeah.
We were just a poor little family in a village in New South Wales. Although I think we got color at some stage. So, guys, nothing really new apart from the pound Aussie and the euro Aussie trades that or orders that, and now one is triggered. Happy days with the rest of all that. And I've got one more thing. Speaking about watching things for you tonight, of things that do keep me awake. And it's about watching movies. So think of this. At the movie theater, which armrest is yours?
Oh, that's a good one, mate.
Not a bad one, is it? So
no, I have got an answer to that.
Go on.
Well, you know when you live next door to people, you have your fence, don't you? Your fence is one side, and usually as you look back, your fence is the one on the right hand side. That's your responsibility.
Really?
As you look into your back garden. Yeah.
Is that the thing?
That's the thing in the UK, yeah.
Okay.
Fence on the right is yours. Because if you have the fence on the left and right, then your next door neighbor doesn't have a fence.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, gotcha. All right, if that's the thing, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to think of another 2 things for tomorrow to keep me awake at night. I know I won't be awake tonight. So,
but just on that kind of theory, then I think the armrest on the right is yours.
Thanks, mate. I'll take that next time at the movie theater, and I'll blow up with this bastard next door to me.
I mean, which isn't so good for left-handers.
It's a bugger for left-handers, I would imagine. Yes.
Yeah.
TP1 for pound Aussie should be just adjacent to the top of this range that we've got here. So before the highs, before the swing high. Okay. If you want me to give you a level, I will do that. Let's make it 97.15. So 1.9715 would be your TP1 on this, which will give you almost 50 pips in the bank at that point. Because it is a genuine slingshot trade, we need to close half of that position and move our stops to wherever we take our first profit. So if it's 50 pips, we have to move our stop loss 50 pips from entry. I don't know if we've actually got that much up our sleeve. What was our risk? There to there. Oh, yeah, we do. So move your stops from about 70 pips up to 50 pips if you take the profit there. If you take a profit sooner, obviously do that. But that would be what I'd be looking for. Euro Aussie still hasn't triggered, I don't think, has it? I'll give you the level on that. No, that hasn't triggered yet. And the TP first take profit level on this one. Why is my entry there? It shouldn't be. It should be there. Oh, it's not an entry. Sorry, it's just a line. Okay. So there's your entry. There's your stop loss. So you're risking about 65 pips on this one. You'd want to be taking profit somewhere in here. Let's call it 30 pips, 171.94. 171.94. There must be a chart pattern to answer the armrest question. There's my homework. I've got to find that one. I will stay awake, Peel and LT, you're right. Okay, I'm done, mates. We are in the market long pound Aussie. We've got a whole bunch of other trades that we're managing as well. So all is well here.
Great stuff. Now, just to quickly get to the point about XTI on the fusion markets, then, you know, when it comes to it, Chris, I would treat it in the same way as I would WTI. So, you know, if you have I got the screen? You got the screen, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Let me quickly grab it and I'll show you what I mean.
Roger.
Great. So this is XTI. You got that low there. This is a 4 hour. Sorry, this is a daily chart on XTI. The low that looks like an inverted head and shoulders forming, right? So looking pretty good actually for a long. Just waiting for the long setup. So, you know, you'd want to get to your 4 hour chart. What does that need to do? Probably need to break through 28.25 on the 4 hour before I'd be too interested. 28.25, 27 looks pretty good there. So this is the hourly, but a bit cleaner on the hourly, funnily enough. Still the same thing though. 28. It still needs to get through this high here. It gets a close above that high. I'd be interested in XTI. So you can see that there's you know, effectively there's two areas to get through. There's this one and this one, but maybe significantly the trend line. Now, if I bring in WTI, pretty much the same thing. Inverted head and shoulders, which would be the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder down here. Hopefully you can see that. Just in case, left shoulder is the head, right shoulder forming here. So we got our higher low there. Might not even be that far out. I'm not sure, but let's see a second. And then we got, so we'd want the same thing with our 4 hour. Got to get through here, the 26.77. We can change that to the hourly because it was a bit cleaner. Now that was our first area we need to get through. So it looks like we need to get through here. Actually, I do see the challenge you're under here. Actually, so it is actually quite a bit different, isn't it? I mean, you'd have to approach it like it was a separate chart. I wouldn't worry too much about WTI. It's difficult actually because you can't really. The WTI futures, XTI, I'm presuming is the actual price, is it? I don't know. Is that going on? Does this one close? Not cleaner on XTI. You've really got to trade it. You've got to trade it like it's its own chart because, you know, it will react in the same way that any other chart will, where it will, you know, hit a level of resistance here and go down. And then, you know, it's carved out its support area here. You can see that this is the left shoulder and the right shoulder, you know, they're forming at the same time. That was the 9th of March. This one is obviously now. We go back to WTI. The time period here is Yeah, the 9th of March. There's the left shoulder. There's the head. There's the right shoulder. It probably needs to get through. That's the cleanest line I've got, really. It might even be that the line is more like that, because then you run in. No, you don't even run into that, do you? That's the cleanest line I've got. So it looks like it's got to get through 2,700. Sorry, $27 a barrel. Maybe 26, 25 or something like that. But it's got to get above here to be of interest to the upside on WTI. Is it the same? Can we do the same thing with this one? Yeah, slightly different, isn't it? I mean, that is the neckline. I would use the daily chart. If you're going to be comparing the two, you're going to have to use the daily chart. If you're not, then you just want to trade it in the same way that you would trade any other cross, if you like. You know, when your indicators start to shape up and start to line up, you take the trade. That's pretty much all I can offer for that, because I don't go FTSE Futures UK 100 to get a comparison of when I should trade. I literally just look at the FTSE Futures, and they are basically the same thing. You know, this is linked to this. I know they look identical, but there's going to be slight discrepancies on the daily the UK 100 than the FTSE Futures. This is the UK 100. In actual fact, if I bring in pivots, I think it's probably a bit more evident. It looks it's a bit more obvious. Look at this. Look at these pivots. So we've got the daily there, monthly, and then weekly. We bring in the futures. Look at how close the weekly and the monthly are. But I'm not going to go to my UK 100 and try and ascertain what's going on this. I'm just going to trade this. So if you've got XTI, trade XTI, trade it like you would any other chart, rather than worrying too much about. XTI is oil. Yeah. That's it for me, though, mate. I don't really have too much else to offer.
All right, mate. Happy days. I love you guys' sense of humor in the room. Thank you. Thank you for drawing circles and starting your own YouTube show, Crystal, on how not to trade. I like that. You know what? If you can do that and play reversals, then you're probably on a good thing, right? If you show people how not to trade, then by definition,
you're
showing them how to trade.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to leave you with one more thing that'll keep you awake tonight, guys. Who knew what time it was when the first clock was made? Who knew that? That's going to keep me awake at night.
Surely that's got to come down to the. Well, that's very good. I get it, mate. I totally get it. Isn't that? That's got to come down to the way the sun rises, though, right? And the moon.
Well, sundial, yes, absolutely.
Sundial, yeah.
Yep. But still, who said it's 12:30? It's 12:30 the cloud or something, wasn't it? Whatever it was. There's some really I
don't think we're going to sleep. We're not going to sleep tonight, are we?
No, buggered, gone, had it. All right, I'm going to go and wish you guys a wonderful rest of Tuesday, and look forward to seeing you on Hump Day Wednesday, which of course is tomorrow. Those of you who tune into the various TTR shows, PH, you've got to get to bed, so have I, because I'm on before you. And those of you who tune in to me, look forward to seeing you there bright and early in the morning. Ash, see you same bat time tomorrow?
Yes, absolutely. Same trade time, same trade channel at 5 to 8.
That's a date. Don't be late. See you later, guys.